The topography of a landscape describes the particular characteristics of the contours of that landscape. So depending upon things like the geology of that area and how far inland and the steepness of that terrain and the rainfall of that region will all impact upon the various characteristics of that topography. Generally in New Zealand, being quite a geographically dynamic region, there's a lot of topographical movement. So we've got quite steep mountain ranges that are quite close to the ocean, and in between it's quite rolling terrain, and with that terrain getting steeper the closer towards those mountains. So that's the general characteristics of the region, and it tends to open up a little bit on river valleys with a change in the soil of those river valleys with a higher deposit of silts that impacts the composition of that soil. And then closer towards the ocean it tends to flatten out, and depending on the characteristics of that ocean, you tend to get some dunes forming close to the ocean. So being aware of the topography of your particular area is things like, what is the size of that catchment of that area? So what is the size of the land where water's falling on that land will collect at a certain point, and that will impact things like creating dams and swales and working with water on your particular site. It will also affect things like the drainage of your site, how suitable your site is for different types of production, because things like forestry trees can be better positioned in areas of your landscape that are getting quite steep. And that kind of region there, the steepest areas of your landscape are best reserved for native habitat or natural habitats, which could incorporate bee fodder or some sort of low level of sustainable timber harvest from that region there, but generally to kind of leave it for natural habitat. And then bordering that, you can quite effectively have your timber, sustainable timber production. And then in this mid zone here tends to be the most beneficial zone for agricultural production. So it's not too steep. It's got a moderate slope to it, and that moderate slope gives it good drainage. It makes sure that when river valleys flood, it's out of that flood zone, so it's not in a flood risk zone. But it's not too steep that when you get a high erosion risk because it's too steep. It's of a moderate contour where it's most beneficial for production. And then even within that zone you get different different areas of that are best suited to different types of production. So where it gets flatter, closer to the catchments of the streams and rivers, that tends to be the most fertile, so more intensive styles of agriculture are best done in that zone, or dairy farming, something which would best suits that lower incline, more fertile area of productivity. And then the mid zone here is best suited for grazing type systems, which might incorporate some type of silver pasture productive tree crop into it. And then the zone just above that that's getting steeper still is best suited for some sort of timber production. And then your areas of habitation, so best places to put houses so that they can benefit from water catchments above them, and the close proximity to all the production zones is generally best suited to the region in between the lowland high intensity production and the broader acre grazing systems. And then within this region, in a particular catchment, you have faces of hillsides that face north, and faces of hillsides that face south. And it's these north-facing slopes that are the most productive because they receive the most sunlight, which will stimulate the highest rates of photosynthesis and the highest rate of production. So as being aware of the topography of the landscape can help you locate the positions for the most suitable types of production, and also within also things like what is the catchment size that will impact being able to collect and store water on your property, and also the aspect of that slope in regards to if it's facing the sun or not.